He's got scars from battles she didn't see. She hides her pain with painted mystery. He was the jester in a kingdom of pain. She danced in the rain to cover her shame. Two shattered hearts caught in a dark ballet, laughing through tears to keep the shadows at bay. Her fragile smile hides the weight of it all, but when he makes her laugh, he feels 10 feet tall. In the candlelight, her face paint fades, revealing the scars that her lovers have made. Together they patch each other's seams, jesters in love, living out their dreams. Her laughter is faint, like a ghost of her past. He clings to her smile, hoping to make it last. They juggle their pain in the shadows of night. Two fractured souls searching for the light. The circus fades, but the scars remain. They hold on to each other, erasing the pain. Beneath the canopy of midnight's embrace, they bear their truths in that fragile space. Shattered reflections, both sharp and cold, yet in those ruins their love takes hold. In the candlelight, her face paint fades, revealing the scars that her lovers have made. Together they patch each other's seams, jesters in love, living out their dreams. Through the ashes of pain, they carve their way. In the shadows' grip, they choose to stay. No mask, no lies, just raw emotion. Two fractured hearts bound by devotion. Their world of horrors and the pain it can bring, a haunting melody only they can sing.
All right. So the goal for today is, while we wait for the Steam unlock, we were listening to one of the songs. I wrote the lyrics for that. That's another track on PGN. That's what we were listening to. So today is the day that has been coming for about 9 years. Intrepid Studios is, well, it's not the day that's been coming for 9 years. It's kind of like a sideshow, like you were on your way to Disney World and then you thought you were going to be there today, and then you find out that you're stopping at your great aunt's house. How we ended up going to Steam, my best guess is that Intrepid ran out of money. Based on the couple of videos I did, peel back the layers. If you know anything going on behind the scenes with Intrepid, you know that they're facing one lawsuit from Aetna Life Insurance or Dental Vision Care or something in California. and they're facing another almost $1 million lawsuit, about $856,000 in New York for breach of contract, which generally there's two lines of thought when it comes to civil lawsuits. One line of thought with civil lawsuits is that the courtroom is just a continuation of the business process. You believe X, they believe Y. You're both going to tell your story and the judge is going to decide Z. Generally though, big companies, the type that are suing Intrepid, the two that are now suing Intrepid, they don't really fuck around. They don't bring lawsuits unless they're Aetna, especially. They don't bring lawsuits unless their legal division has looked at it and said, yes, we are 100% certain, we are 100% in the right. And with Aetna, it's a contract thing. Contracts really aren't open for dispute. You agree to pay us from X date to Y date, Z amount of money. Obviously, it feels like that last month they shouldn't have been paying for. They didn't feel they were obligated. Aetna feels differently, so they're suing. I don't know what the dollar amount for that is. It's not worth pulling the paperwork. I doubt it's for more than a couple of $100,000. The other lawsuit, though, that was just filed at the beginning of December is for about $856,000. Intrepid allegedly did not pay a New York-based company some cloud hosting fees that they incurred on Intrepid's behalf at Google, I think is how that reads through. That's a 3-year ago lawsuit or a 3-year ago contract. So they've probably been trying in earnest. It's also very interesting that they're suing them in New York and not California. I would have thought that they would have had to be sued in California because that's where Intrepid is incorporated. They're a California corporation. Although not being privy to the contract, it is possible that Intrepid signed terms of service or a user agreement that allows for the New York organization to sue them in New York. That would really be the only way that could be occurring, because generally Intrepid's argument would be very much like the Soulbound Studios with Caspian and Chronicles of Illyria. He got sued in California. He's a Washington-based company. His legal argument was, Your Honor, you don't have jurisdiction over me for this case, so I'd like my part of the lawsuit dismissed, and it was. You can't sue somebody in a state where they don't reside, because, like, if you tried to sue PGN, my company, in any state other than Illinois, my first line argument would be, Your Honor, you don't have jurisdiction over my company. We're an Illinois-based corporation. All of our everything says we do business in Illinois. We technically don't do business in any other state. We do business in Illinois. So with that said, Intrepid moving the product to Steam does, in some ways, potentially indicate some greater problems at Intrepid Studios. If there's any game designers from my community present today, they can speak more intelligently on the problem of launchers and patchers. The handful of people that I've talked to in the past have said launchers and patchers suffer incredible tech debt at your company. You're spending an awful lot of money on manpower, hours, resources, time, constantly keeping the patcher, the downloader, the launcher functional and operational. In some ways, it is a lot easier to go to Steam. Steam does take a 30% cut of your first $10 million, 25% cut of your next $20 million, and then 20% thereafter. If Ashes of Creation were to become a monumental hit, they would probably be able to go to Steam and renegotiate. A couple of things just on the idea of moving to Steam. I would not imagine seeing the Ashes of Creation store on their website going away. I would imagine that in order to save money, what they will do is they will run their cosmetic cash shop with a conversion of cash to embers. I believe my belief, this is just an opinion, once the game launches live, you won't be able to buy things directly from the cash shop in the game. You'll have to buy embers or whatever on the website, and more likely rather than less likely, you'll have to buy the cosmetics through their website. And then get credit for them and bring them over through the website into the game. If I were a betting man, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big of a shit show will launch be? I bet downloading the client will choke, and then the reviews will be brutal. So that is a great question. And on that question, I have to seriously doubt Intrepid. And as I have for years, and even yesterday when I streamed, the haters in the Ashes of Creation community, go you guys. I'm glad I'm so meaningful to your lives that you tune in and you hang on every word I say in order to report back to the community at large. You're doing your Lord's work, apparently. I don't think I said anything derogatory or nasty yesterday about Intrepid or about the studio, or most of those creators. I said about Zyback, I'll repeat what I said because I stand by it. I think Zyback is really, really good for identifying flaws in the PvP, but I think that's his role should be a problem identifier, and I think every problem he identified is a great problem to identify. I give him 10 out of 10 on his problem identification. I give him 0 out of 10 on his proposed solutions, and that's okay. And Merry Christmas to you. I am a Christmas person, but if you're not a Christmas person, happy holidays. But as far as how big of a shit show is today going to be, my first question would have to be, why was there no pre-download available? And I haven't gotten to the point where in the video, and I'm hoping to chew through some more of this video today, I haven't gotten to the point where Steven said why there's not going to be a pre-download. But I've been told, so I'm repeating and paraphrasing what I've been told, is he said there's not going to be a pre-download because we want to throttle people's access to the game so that we don't overcrowd the starting areas. Okay. But you've also said that you plan on 50,000 people concurrent during the Steam, and you've only launched 6 servers. So I'm confused as to how many people. Yeah, I know why. They were feverishly working on it. I know that. You know that. My cat knows that. The reason why there wasn't a download available is because they didn't have a build cook. They didn't have a build ready. It's also one of the things we heard yesterday during this interview that I'm going to get back to. Steven's talking about Priority 0 and Priority 1 bugs being in some sort of patch fix on the 18th of December. Now, I'm going to stop and say in preface, which I always do, I am not a game developer. I have never developed a video game. I have worked on 2 pieces of software. I am not a coder. I'm not a programmer. When I was active duty, I was sent to oversee 2 pieces of software because they were at the what the fuck is going on stage. And a lot of my military career was project management and I was a CPI guy. I was FSO 21. I was continuous process improvement. And part of that was we have this project that is completely off the rails. Send in Captain Jalan because he doesn't give a shit. And he does like Toyota. He does the CPI piece. He does FSO 21. He's going to get it like back in order, or he's going to tell us it's a dead dog, dead horse, dead fish, dead whatever animal. I hate the phrase dead dog. It makes me sad. So if you still have Priority 0 and Priority 1 bugs, why are you taking the next step and going to even more full-time ops and sustainment? And the people that interview Steven never put his feet to the fire, and I don't want to do an interview, but I want somebody who says they're the new me for Ashes and gets down into the details. Somebody needs to spine up and do a hard-hitting interview with Steven and say, why did you make the push to Steam when you were aware, consciously aware of priority 0 and priority 1 bugs. If you have a laundry list of broken shit, you shouldn't be pushing. You should be stopping. In this, if you haven't watched the interview that Nice, Vladius, Lloyd, and Zybeck did with Steven, there's a lot of, I'm only an hour and 40 minutes into the roundtable. There's a lot of concerning shit that gets said. Well, I'm actually probably 40 minutes in because they probably did their hour preload. There's a lot of concerning stuff that Steven says. He's like, in the next milestone, we have 3 axes, right? Steven is about the Maduro of MMORPGs. You're gonna have to explain that one. I don't get the pop culture reference. But Steven's talking about, well, it's class development. We have 3 axes. And I'm like, the way you just described 10 sprints worth of work. And if your sprints are a month long, Steven off the cuff talked about what I would say as a project manager is 10 sprints. Because he talked about 3 axes. And the problem with three axes is that I think this was deficiencies, this was new skills, and this was synergies. I if I remember correctly how he broke it down. Normally in the past I would have put this all in a notebook, but I don't give that much of a shit anymore. So if you have this, then you observe, you orient, you act, you test. You act, you test. But you can't do, you cannot do the second axis analysis until you've implemented your potential change. Because if I data gather here, and I data gather here, and I data gather here, then 2 and 3 are GIGO. They're garbage in, garbage out. They're flawed data. Because how can I identify what new skills I need if I'm fixing deficiencies? Am I back to Ashes of Creation? I'm not going to say I'm back to Ashes of Creation. My personal belief is I had some obligations to the community that I spent 5 years building. I said I would look at Ashes of Creation every testing interval. And then I would stream it at every testing interval. Unfortunately, if I do get to download and stream, it might be pretty choppy and ruggish. My gaming PC is back at origin. My CPU, my motherboard, and my NVMe drive all were under warranty. So instead of them sending me a kit to send just the motherboard back, they wanted the whole case, which is fine. But it'll be about 10 days till I get it back. So yeah, if you're doing this, then at a minimum, this is a step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like, Steven just off the cuff is like, oh yeah, we're doing this thing, and in the next milestone, we're gonna get all of this stuff done. I hope Intrepid turns around about putting Ashes into GE Force now that it's on Steam. What I'm gonna say is, maybe there's better, new, convincing information about GE Force and MMOs, but my understanding is that GE Force still has the problem with MMOs that if you're playing through GE Force, you have more delay than somebody who's connecting directly. Because, and this is my understanding, and I could be wrong, I'm at home, I'm playing on my PC, I connect to your server, so I'm just having a two-way conversation. But when you're playing at home and you're playing on GE Force, what's ultimately happening is you're connecting to GE Force, it's connecting to the server, The server's sending information back to GeForce, and GeForce is sending information back to your PC. For some, and I know that like Stadia had the problem of latency being noticeably significantly higher in fighting games, which put people at a disadvantage. Now, I don't know if they've resolved that. I also don't care about, like, it's like, I'm not flippantly saying I don't care about GeForce. I don't know about GeForce and the updates and the changes. I don't know if it's GeForce or GeForce or General Electric Force or, you know, Omni consumer products. All I know is it allows you from your PC to play on basically a remote box that has more power than your box. So it's basically like you're remoting into somebody else's PC. I get that some people are like, yeah, it would be great if it was on GeForce. Okay, but can it deliver the same quality? Can it deliver the same performance? The lag nowadays is practically not noticeable. Linus made a video about it 1 month ago. Let's see. I don't watch blind videos, but let me see if... Well, it looks like he tested Borderlands 4, Apex Legends. I wish people would just like put their results. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not watching through all that because it's not the talking point. But yeah, it looks like he tested some local games and it looks like he tested some shooters. Shooters are always going to be a good benchmark for the performance of something like GeForce because they require the most pinpoint laser accuracy, because if you're off by even a pixel, your shot misses or your shot hits. So yeah, maybe. With gigabit connections now, you're good for the most part. I want to stop you. The majority of people don't have gigabit connections. The idea that everybody's on a gigabit connection is radical and wild. There's 270 houses in my subdivision, 277, I believe. And I believe I'm one of like the 4 people that are on the gig service here. Talking to the people, the majority of the people are like, I just don't see the value. And you see the gamer kid or the kids in the background like, we see the value. But people are like, I don't see the value. MMOs on GeForce are Guild Wars 2, New World, Age of Conan, Albion. DayZ is not an MMO. DayZ is not an MMO, but DayZ is not an MMO, but DayZ requires good latency. Guild Wars 2 does, New World kind of does, Age of Conan kind of does. Yet, TWO, you're under the assumption that all gamers are on gigabit connections. Gigabit connections aren't even available everywhere. Like, just for some golly gee whiz, we still have places in the United States that don't have hardline internet. There's a lot of places where gigabit connections aren't even an option. So to say you're good for the most part, you're good if you have a gigabit connection. But that's like saying you're good if you have a boat and it floods. Okay, but I don't have a boat. Oh, well, you're fucked then. GeForce, and again, I'm just gonna say this. It always makes me sound pretentious, but I don't care because it's the life advice I would give you. If you can't afford, if you're a gamer and you want to be a gamer and you can't afford a nice PC, what you don't have is time. Money's not what you don't have. Time's what you don't have. It's like the people that say, I can't afford to pay a $15 a month subscription to an MMO. That's why I like free-to-play games. If at the end of the month you're looking at your budget and you don't have $14.99 to spare for an MMO subscription, what you don't have is the time to be playing games. What your time should be spent for is working another job. So, let's go to the, would you consider, oh, this is going to be the question that we left off on yesterday with the economy.
Commissions to create a better gameplay loop, as there isn't a whole lot of incentive for players to do them at this moment, especially for post-level progression. Do you think creating a player-curated commission board for artisanship and other quests where players post jobs and bounties themselves to pay settlement currency or gold would be a more dynamic and immersive than the current system? For example, using
and they can prepare potential
level progression. Do you think creating a player
automatically flag someone as a combatant for PvP to encourage natural open world competition?
area where even entering that's given extreme advantage, and they can prepare them.
Yeah, level progression. Do you think better gameplay loop,
Oh
as
my
there
God, I
isn't
can't
for
find that. There
lawlessness,
we go.
then
I'll
I
just let
would be
this
on
answer
hit
finish.
just for that type of interaction. But the volumes, absolutely.
I like that. Yeah, good answer. No follow-ups. I'm good to go. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you expand on Intrepid's intentions on settlement currency and commissions to create a better gameplay loop, as there isn't a whole lot of incentive for players to do them at this moment, especially for post-level progression? Do you think creating a player-curated commission board for artisanship and other quests where players post jobs and bounties themselves to pay settlement currency or gold would be a more dynamic and immersive than the current system? For example, using buy orders for artisanship, bounties, attack and defend quests, fetch quests, etc.
Yeah,
Before Steven gives his answer, this is a drilled down economic. We started some of this yesterday, so it was what I was thinking about while I was bebopping around. The player-based economy in a game is so important. It has to be a player-based economy because it has to be a player-driven economy. EVE Online is probably the greatest example of a player-driven economy. Buy orders are a great thing, especially if they're taxed both ways, because it becomes a gold sink. It becomes an easy gold sink that nobody really notices the pain. Even if the gold sink on the buy order side is simply the transaction fee for establishing the buy order, that helps pull gold back out of the economy in small amounts that it help balance. Now, the idea of player-driven quests, that is something that any developer who's saying we're going to have a player-driven economy, buy orders, sell orders, obviously. I did like early on that Ashes of Creation wasn't going to have a server-wide centralized auction house. I think the idea of local economies, local markets, really do generate that player agency piece. The thought process behind that you were going to have to transport goods that you buy in bulk via caravan, just like in EVE Online, you go buy a bunch of Starship components, you got to throw them in a ship and fly them back, or you constantly fly the ships that need the components to where you buy them, fit the ship up and leave. Either one of those, like you could buy a bunch of components, go and make the items there and then transport the items out. That was something I identified about 5 years ago and said, well, if you have to transport raw materials via a caravan, but you can have an infinite number of weapons in your backpack, crafters get the advantage that they just go to where the materials are, make the items, and then move them. But as far as the settlement currency and the commission, the player-driven stuff, absolutely. Now let's see what Steven says.
you know, I think that that's actually some discussion that we've had on the system side for that potential. I'm not sure that it would be through directly players, right? Just any player can come in and do it. I think that what we want to do is reserve that space for organizations within the node. That's social organizations that we've talked about, or that's patron guilds that might have a guild hall within the space, or that's the religion within the node, the temple that's been identified there. Those types of institutions within the node that also have player ranking, player ladder systems associated with them are where we would likely vest the power to incorporate more player-centric buy orders and commissions as potentials, and that's part of the existing design. In addition to that, I would say that there are correlating systems that are predicated on successful adoption and completion of the player base. So when a commission comes up or when a buy order is there, right now, those systems are not fully in place. Those things include things like the node-to-node trading system. Acquiring certain resources, you may have to have 100 players complete X commission, right? Or finish this buy order in order to generate the necessary trade goods that nodes would use between each other to facilitate relationship building and alliance building or war efforts, right? There are ancillary systems that are not fully in place yet in the vision of how these types of settlement currencies and commissions or buy order quests are in place, but those are the vehicles for fueling those types of systems.
So the issue here is, I think Steven's answer is troublesome because it kind of indicates that there's going to be some amount of saying alt abuse. You require 100 people to do something. It shouldn't require 100 unique people to do something one time. It should require a unique thing having to be done 100 times, but you're limited to how many times a day each citizen can do it. Because, and I'll give a little bit of benefit of the doubt there. He may have not given a 100% complete answer because that's not the question that was asked. But if you create a system that encourages alts, then it becomes very, like the first time you crack that wall in the we want to make an alt unfriendly game, not an alt unfriendly game. We want to make an alt unnecessary game. Well, then any control you try to put in, like, we need this task done 100 times, but you can only do the task 5 times per day. Okay, but I'm one of the people that can play 16 hours a day, so let me roll 3 alts. And then I can just do these meaningless tasks. I can do 20% of them on behalf of my node between me and all my alts. Where he said the different organizations, the social organizations, the patron guilds, the religions, I think Where Winds Meet is a game that needs to kind of be looked at and understand that behind every character is a player. And it's a player that's not doing things in necessary alignment that the character should. Like, whenever you tabletop, like you GM tabletop, and a character has an alignment of righteous good, but wants to execute a criminal, like, look, I'm gonna stop you from taking that action, have a conversation with you and say, you do understand your righteous good. You do understand that killing a criminal is not something that you can do lightly, and there's mechanical throws, saving throws, dice rolls, conscious throws that you need to do that, and you're probably not going to be righteous good. Now, if the player comes back and says, I understand, but in a moment, this is the man who killed my family, sure, great, you can rationalize it. Your patron guild system, if being the patron guild system comes with all these other benefits, you run the risk of the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. You run the risk of the powerful guilds get more and more powerful, because if you believe that guilds won't manipulate the religions and guilds won't manipulate the social organizations, then, like, yes, I said yesterday, to build a video game, you have to have a keen insight into the human psyche, into the mind of a human. In Where Winds Meet, there is a guild of healers that control the voting for the divine healers for the sect. If you want to be in any other guild, that's cool, but there is one guild specifically that's not vote manipulating, because they're not really doing any manipulation. What they're doing is they're controlling it. They're a political party. They are the Healers Guild, and they're controlling the candidates. Saying player-centric more doesn't make player-centric happen more. Saying player-centric incorrectly in context means you don't understand what it is. I do agree with that.
And I believe that that will place a greater emphasis on player adoption.
Thank you.
So I guess I'll go next. So many MMOs live or die by their endgame, and with Intrepid pushing towards beta, of course, of late 2026, like what major endgame systems, such as like massive world PvP events, castle wars, endgame story arcs, instance dungeons, or even anything new that would be fully implemented, balanced, and ready for mass testing at beta?
I want to remind you.
Before beta, yes, the game will be feature complete before beta. That is something that is necessary. Beta really is intended to identify last minute bugs, to kind of make sure that everything is ready for launch. And it's important that all features are complete by beta 1. Yes.
So a couple of years ago, the roadmap was all features would be complete before beta.
What major endgame systems are going to be ready for testing by beta?
Yes.
All of them.
Wow.
In order for us to enter beta, all of those systems must be complete and testable. So by definition, that's what I would consider the word beta to mean. Now, if we're thinking about the things that I am most excited for, obviously we've done a lot of work on node sieges. There's still a lot of work left to do for node sieges, but the destruction phase of node sieges is probably going to be the one that I'm most interested in seeing. And it's not for probably the reasons you would think. It's not because I think that that particular system is going to be a lot of fun. I do think it will be, but I'm not interested because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm interested because I think it's going to be the greatest friction point we have with players. And I am going to be really keen on inspecting how players react to that friction point, how we onboard players to the expectation that their settlement is not a forever thing. Because right now their expectation is, cool, I need to choose where I'm going to lay my roots down, and that's going to be my tree forever, for back of letter terminology, given that we have trees in the center of our settlements. But really the concept's going to be, where do I want to invest? Because I could lose that investment, right? And when I lose that investment, what's going to be my reaction?
That right there is the thing that I've been saying since the very beginning. When I lose my node, what is going to be my reaction? And the answer to that I don't think Intrepid has ever satisfactorily answered is this is 3 players. And they're friends. And they're in a guild together. And their node just went bye-bye. This player is just going to quit the game. Not because of anything to do with the game, but because Steven hit the key, the nail on the head. He said, the investment. My investment into your game is now over. I'm done. I'm going. My node lost. I've played through the story that I want to play through. Chrono Odyssey is out. ArcAge 2 is out. A DLC for Path of Exile 2 is out. Patch for Diablo is out. Any number of other things that has this player's attention. They say, you know what? It was a good run, guys. It was great playing with you. I'm out. Now, I know what some of the White Knight rabid fan base would say. We don't want players like that anyway. Players like that suck. They're terrible. You're always going to have that. It's an inevitable whatever. And you're right. Maybe you don't want those players like that. But Intrepid wants every player they can get their hands on because they're a company and they need money and they're clearly running in debt. So they can't afford to lose people until they make enough money to get out of debt. This player is going to suddenly be more disenfranchised with the game, but they're going to stick with it. This player is your core audience. This player understands that their node being destroyed is an inevitable outcome of the game. But now what you have is you have this player right here who is now going to be the centerpiece of player conflict, not game conflict. This person wants this player to come with them and go play that other game, go back to Once Human, go to Chrono Odyssey, go to wherever. This player wants to keep their guildmate. Now, as I said, these 3 people are part of an overall guild. If too many of the people are this person and they leave the game, this person might have been okay with sticking with the game, but that's their girlfriend or their boyfriend or their spouse or their sister, brother, whatever. So the player-to-player pull is, yeah, you lost player number 1 because of your game design, and you lost player number 2 because of the social nature of humans. So now, I love the idea of node destruction. And over the years, a lot of people have said it's going to be a great part because when your node gets destroyed, you get to start all over. Sure. But another game just launched. I can go start all over in that new game. I think Steven realizes this deep down. I just think he's radically overestimating how many people are going to be willing to play through that gameplay loop.
My resources that I might lose, my house that I might lose and invest in, my position within the, citizenship taxation. Like those types of things are scary when I think about them because they're kind of hardcore. It's a hardcore concept. But I'm sorry to go on and on about a part of the question that you didn't necessarily ask, but the answer to the question was easy. The beta is we're going to have everything in it. Yeah, go ahead.
The broader philosophy is like, again, like so many MMOs come out with this like grand design, and with combat, y'all, I feel like you guys nailed it. Like this alpha combat wise, like everybody that's been, even they may not like how fleshed out the game is yet, combat's always a huge staple for, it's very positive. But content is what literally the first 30 days goes from 1 million players down to 0.
Totally.
So I would rather you guys actually delay content off of the initial plan so that we can have more fleshed out content instead of just one system to do at endgame kind of thing.
So you'd rather we delay content? I'm sorry, expand on that.
I would rather you delay the second continent to focus on this continent and flesh this continent out with.
I see what you mean. So, first, it depends on the type of content we're talking about, right? Because not all verticals are assumed by the same team, right? We have a large team. We have over 250 developers now that are focused on the game. And that's not including our outsource and contractors that we currently have. If we were to include all those things, we're probably well over 320 or 330 people that are working on the project.
They have 330 people working on the project. Now, again, this is just my background in project management. You have tripled, well, you've doubled and a half the number of staff you originally set out for. You've tripled the time, but you're going to deliver half the product. And when I say half the product, if you weren't here yesterday and you didn't hear Steven say, most likely the second continent will not be in at launch. No matter how you slice the apple, half of your content is gone. Because if you've taken away a whole continent, then all the nodes on that continent are gone. The castles, the world bosses. Now, I will admit, world bosses are kind of easier to implement if you have all 15 world bosses designed, but let's say there's only 7 spawn points on the original continent. You can schedule the world you could, in theory, schedule the world bosses to appear on rotation. You wouldn't have to necessarily restrict them to the spot you want them to spawn. The risk with that, however, is then people would say, well, the new continent opened, but you didn't really bring anything new. We've already seen these world bosses. We've seen these dungeon bosses. So you don't have the second continent landscape finished, but you can't start poaching its content. Otherwise, when you do release the new continent, you don't have anything new and fresh. It also troubles me, which is why I hope somebody who actually says to Steven, how do you plan on doing server management if the whole server was designed to be 10,000 players, if this whole map is supposed to accommodate 10,000 players, how is one continent now suddenly going to house 10,000 players? How is your node density, your housing density? Because remember, you're supposed to have X amount of houses, X amount of freeholds, X amount of apartments in each node, and not being able to get housing is supposed to be a driving factor for you to maybe move to a different node, to give you that to go invest somewhere else. My least favorite thing about world bosses is when they're farmed on rotation. Okay, my challenge back to you is, how do you stop that? Like, world bosses are always going to be farmed on rotation simply because they are content. If you know the spawn schedule, is your solution then to have them not on a fixed spawn, that you have, like, it's not 48 hours or 24 hours or 12 hours, they'll be gone at least X amount of time, and then they, like, because there's pros and cons of each of those ways to solve the farming world bosses on rotation.
With that being said, we have the ability to divide that up, and as we bring in outsourced studios next year, and we incorporate them into our pipelines. And what a pipeline is how does a thing get made from concept to QA? How does a feature or piece of content make it into the game?
That's not a pipeline.
Those pipelines need to be strong enough to support outside assistance, outside adoption, to come in and into our development environment. So if we're talking about the second continent, like, yes, I think most people would rather have one continent filled with great content that had a lot of time to bake and is well made, and we agree with that 100%. But with that being said, there are ways that, again, we can leverage those outsourced studios to ensure that we're developing great content for both continents, because much of our content pipelines are built with systems that make it very repeatable. And, we're building an MMO. We're not building a single player game.
That is a pipeline. Now we hit the key word on what a pipeline is.
Not everything is bespoke that we move through in the world. A lot of the, I forgot about that. There's a thing about bespoke.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff we reuse. We have to. In order for us to build an MMORPG, we must reuse. Any MMO that's been built has been built off of that philosophy. So the effort to stand up the second continent is not going to be as great as the effort to stand up the first. That's just a fact. But with that being said, again, we're not talking about removing the second continent. We're talking about whether or not the second continent gets moved to a post launch.
Yeah,
and then it's a big expansion moment. It's like, oh my God, an entire second realm, is being released. Like that is actually an appealing factor of moving the second continent to post launch.
No, it's not. And he's not looking at, he absolutely is not looking at the flaw of the second continent. So you have the first continent and the second continent, and I'm just gonna say there's 35 nodes on the main continent, there's 35 nodes on the other continent, and then the other 14 nodes are divvied out among the islands, just for this example. The problem is, if you suddenly now open up a world of 35 new nodes, when these are all fresh, when the world is populated, assuming you have both continents ready at launch, you're gonna have people going, yeah, it's not an expansion if it was supposed to be in the core viable product. It's finally hitting the target. You've nailed that. But if at launch you've got all these nodes and you've got these divine gates, then what's going to happen is the power is going to be distributed very, very thin across a very large area. And you're going to have this powerhouse guild grows, this powerhouse guild, this powerhouse, and they're going to start when they're going to start like contesting each other. Well, now what you're doing is you're taking what should have been the natural 5 powerhouse guilds, because there's 5 castles, so five will rise to the top, and what you're doing is you're putting 5 powerhouse guilds onto one continent that's not designed for that many players. So, you know for a fact, they're all going to make alliances with each other to say, there's supposed to be 5 castles in the game. There's only 2 or 3 right now. So instead of us ranking the top 5 guilds and then everybody else is the dirty unwashed masses, we have the top 2 guilds because there's 2 castles, the 3 royalty guilds, and then everybody else is still the unwashed masses. So these guilds aren't going to bicker with each other. They're going to be in alliances with each other so that when the new continent opens, this guild knows it's going to the new continent, this guild knows it's going to the new continent, and they know, and this guild's going to the island castle, we'll just throw one there. And so they know they're not going to get messed with by these 2 guilds because they've made an agreement. So as these 3 powerhouse guilds get off the first continent, there's not going to be a power vacuum. This guild is it's going to be like that scene from First Night. Let's say half each. The original idea of Ashes was that the world was so vast that it couldn't be evenly distributed among 5 powerhouse guilds because the local reigning monarch had a responsibility to the mayors of the nodes in his castle region. Well, the way the world could shape and flow, if the monarch was a dictator, he might not get the support of the local nodes. Which means when the tax wagons are supposed to flow up to the castle, none of the node citizens give a shit about helping defend them, and then that's all going to create play and counterplay. Well, you can't now. It's like the movie Down Periscope, if you've ever seen it with Kelsey Grammer. You can't restrict the engagement grid to half the size and expect it to still play out the same. Hey, we're supposed to be playing paintball over 200 acres, but the creek overflowed. So now we only can play on 100 acres. You know what, guys? Let's just cancel the event. If the creek bed is overflowed, we're going to have too many players out there. We're going to have half the play area where the creek's no longer. Let's just cancel the event. I'm not saying cancel Ashes of Creation. I'm saying you're talking about you have 320 people working on the game, and yet these are the things I've heard in this interview so far. You have 320 people working on the game. Next year, you're going into beta. You previously said it'll be done when it's done. Now you don't have the second continent finished. You don't have your 3 axes of class design done, which absolutely means, from a project management standpoint, you should not be saying we're going to be in beta in 2026 because you have no idea. You aren't far enough to know what you don't know to be able to even wag that wild ass guess that. You're talking about what's going to be in the next pipeline, the next pipeline, the next pipeline. And as I said, in my opinion, just on the class discussion, they have at least 10 sprints. We got to identify this, build this. Now that we've built this, we could simultaneously test it and analyze, but you can't analyze 3 things and say we can make these sets of changes because change on Axis 1 changes the analysis of Axis 2. It seems like they're rushing for the sake of rushing. What you said about world bosses is random spawns and the boss being hard enough that a slightly weaker group can contest the boss long enough to despawn so no one gets it. That's one way to do it. I don't necessarily agree with you that world bosses should despawn. I think world bosses should increase their threat until they're dealt with. But especially in a game like Ashes, where the nodes are meaningful. I love when people say they're building an MMORPG, not a single player game, to dismiss shitty content. You can make good quality single player styled content for an MMO. I think ESO does it well. I would agree with you. I think Elder Scrolls Online does side quests, mini quests better than any game on the market. I think the vignettes that they do are well thought out. They're meaningful. They're impactful. You don't feel. I don't feel like an ESO that I'm the holder of the Vorpal sword, but I'm being sent to go kill 5 gophers in the garden. The limited amount of time I've spent in ESO, they feel like they feel like hand-curated dungeon master tabletop setting missions. They feel like a game session. ESO, the times I've played ESO not on stream, I have found myself grossly immersed in ESO. I think their storytelling is amazing. I don't necessarily love their systems, I don't love their combat, but their storytelling is top notch. That's what Steven does. He wings that shit constantly. My friends and I always joke about he just goes based on what his gut tells him, unless someone else is telling him to do that. Well, he's the CEO, so there's nobody else telling him to do that. New World had this massive problem. Basically, if you wanted to take over territory, even if you went after the least desirable one, there would be some of the top players in there fighting to defend their territory. Well, that's good. That's good. The problem becomes, again, the psychology behind players. And I saw this in Arcage. Arcage was a great example of this. So these 2 castles are on vulnerability for siege this week, and they're in an alliance, and they each try to buy the other's siege scroll. And all the top PvPers from both guilds have guild dropped. They're sitting, whatever the time interval was, 2 days before the siege, like 49 hours before the siege, they've guild dropped. So you've got the pool of all the hard hitters sitting guildless. Now, if they both secure each other's flag, they just go back to their original guilds. If this group won this siege flag, but the siege flag for this castle was won by somebody else, then all the top PvPers from both the guilds go into the defending guild, and it's not spread out. This is where you get that human factor. You get the human factor of we're not cheating because it's allowed by the rules, but we are certainly leveraging game mechanics. How would you fix that? That your garrison your garrison and your offensive force have to be declared and your guild locked at the start of declaration period. Meaning you can't dump your best PvPers out to go defend your sister guild. Who's ever on the roster on Tuesday night, your guild is locked on Tuesday night at midnight, or Wednesday morning at exactly midnight through Sunday. If you're a castle holder, your guild roster is locked. You can't bring anybody in. You can't send anybody out. You just do it that way.
Go ahead, Zyback.
All right, so just to let the Twitch chat know, I appreciate the bravery of Steven. We were not told we had to ask certain questions or get these questions approved. So I'm asking this question on behalf of the PvPers. This question is definitely a little nasty, but
Can I expand on that, though, Zyback, just real quick? Because I don't think most people do know.
Yeah.
I don't vet any of these questions. They can ask me whatever they want to ask. If I don't feel comfortable, I'll say I'm not going to answer something. So yeah, and yes, it was crazy when I said that we should. I
appreciate the bravery.
Yes, thank you. When I
just to clarify on that, because I was told on the second interview I did with Steven, I had to submit all of my questions to Margaret Crone to be vetted. And Steven told me, I don't care. Ask me whatever you want to ask me. So I will say that I will say on behalf of Steven in the interview, I was told I had to get my questions approved. Steven told me no. Yeah, Margaret may have said that, but you can ask me whatever you want. If they weren't required to get the questions approved, how did they have the question panel ready in advance? Easy. They send the questions to Margaret, but Margaret doesn't send them. Margaret doesn't send them on to Steven. You don't need to vet questions when you only invite white knights. So I'm going to say this. Steven doesn't only get interviewed by white knights. This obviously is a panel that Intrepid's controlling, because it's on their channel. Steven also was interviewed by Dustin Y, and he was interviewed by Asfan TV on those creators' channels. My interviews with Steven were on my channel. They weren't on the Ashes of Creation channel. There isn't a problem by controlling your content creators in your official content creator program, and only wanting positive-based people. Because as the marketing department, you want to control the narrative. And there is nothing Machiavellian, there is nothing sinister about wanting to control the narrative. Where there is a problem is, I know of at least one person who's had threads deleted on the Reddit. I will say, when I brought it up, Steven did engage with me. We never concluded that discussion. And again, how can I say this? I don't agree with Intrepid Studios controlling the Ashes of Creation Reddit, because Reddit is supposed to be neutral ground. With that said, because Reddit has allowed Intrepid Studios to control the Reddit, I don't see a problem with them trying to keep the posts right of center, positive of center. They can't control MMORPG's Reddit. They can't control what MMORPG.com or Massively or all these other organizations. Now, earlier this year, I did a piece because there was a complete hack of a journalist who wrote a shit tier piece. So I made a video responding to that, not because I need to defend Intrepid Studios. More because the word layoff means something, so don't cause panic. Report responsibly. If you're a journalist, report responsibly. Inviting only white knights is fine. The question you have to ask yourself is, why would Intrepid Studios ever want to do an interview with me? The answer is they wouldn't, because they know what questions I'll ask. You don't step into an interview if you know that you're going to get hit with questions that are going to be uncomfortable. Like, I would never deliberately sandbag somebody I'm interviewing by asking them an out of bounds question. But the question of, how are you operating your company when you're seemingly millions of dollars in debt to outside agencies? You're being sued now in 2 courts. Did you move to Steam because you have money trouble? That's, in my opinion, a completely inbounds question. You never paid off the II Legacy Trust. They ended up taking 9.7% of your company. You said you had no investors, but you do. You have a couple $100,000 bill to Aetna. Might even be sub 100,000, actually. I haven't pulled the paperwork, but my brain is telling me somebody told me it was less than 100K. And then you have an $856,000 lawsuit in New York. I don't care about the game development. I care about the studio health. Would you say it's too many cooks in the kitchen? Intrepid has 250 employees. They have 60 to 70 outside under contract, and now Steven says they will outsource to other studios to make content for Intrepid. No, because they're not. there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but there's only one head chef. Outsourcing is common in every industry. I outsource everybody. Like, I outsource all the music production. We don't do in-house music production. We outsource through Fiverr. I'm the person who decides where to spend the money, how to spend the money, but I leave it up to the, like, when I call people, I'm like, hey, or when I message them, I'm like, hey, this is what I need, and they make it. I give them creative freedom. Now, sometimes there's some problems with the quality, and that's what Intrepid had the problem with Streamline Media. They weren't happy with the resources. I think where the problem comes in is when you start to outsource too much, you lose continuity. What's this about a Steam lock? You have to now link your Intrepid account to Steam, and you'll no longer be able to use the independent launcher. So yes, you have to go to Steam now. They've abandoned their own launcher, probably because the tech debt they were accruing trying to keep a patcher launcher going was problematic for them. So they're just now going to use Steam to distribute. Outsourcing becomes a problem because, and you heard me say earlier to Steven, he used the word pipeline wrong. There's lots of P's in project management. You have pipeline, you have process, you have procedure, you have policy. Pipeline isn't how things get done. Pipeline is when things get done. Pipeline is the tube of things getting done. How they get done is the process. How they get done is practices. How they get done is practice. How they get the hows are the process, the procedure, the policy, the practice. The problem is you order something on a contract. So you place the order. Now, you're going to have, if you follow a standard project management review system, you're going to see things. This is where you give them the design. This is where you give them the contract. You give them all the contract requirements. And then they come back to you at 30% design and they say, well, not 30% design, because that would be two different timelines. They come back to you at 100% designed and they say, this is what we're going to make. And you say, yeah, here's my signature on that. Make that. Then they come back to you at 30% and they say, this is where we're at. They come back to you at 50%. This is where we're at. And these are the times that you have to say, no, this isn't good. Yes, this is. They come back to you at 70. They come back to you at 90. And then between 90 and 100, most contracts state there will be no design changes between 90 and 100. We brought you the almost buttoned up finished product just to show you, but we're at 90. Your last opportunity to really make changes was at 70. The problem with that is when you're talking about something that has as many moving parts as an MMO, it becomes a symphony of people understanding that you can't make changes to a lot of systems. Otherwise, the red widget that you ordered isn't going to fit in to the widget wall. You told them to make 2-inch red widgets, but one of your other systems predicated those to be 3-inch red widgets or 1.5-inch red widgets. But you were you can't make, because it's not in-house. Sure, they could finish it, and they come back to you and they say, here's your 2-inch red widget, and you're like, well, we're going to need to make a change. And they say, great, give us another contract, and we'll rework it. It just incurs a cost. Now, the problem people start hearing about outsourcing is their big problem is, well, outsourcing means you lose creative control. You don't lose creative control. It just changes your creative control. Outsourcing happens all the time. Like the one it's more in building construction. We didn't do tile floors. We didn't do tile floors because number one, every house we built didn't have ceramic tile flooring. That was an upcharge. Some people wanted it. So we contracted with a guy. We outsourced with a guy. His name was Kevin. He was amazing. And we told him as soon as a house, they said, yeah, we want the upgrade to ceramic flooring. Typed it up, sent it to Kevin, approximates, and he said, okay, just give me 7 days notice. I'd find that motherfucker in houses at 3 o'clock in the morning. He'd just be in there at 3 o'clock in the morning and he'd be working and he'd be marking tile. And as soon as 6 o'clock hit, he'd be cutting and dropping. He was done by like 7 or 8 in the morning. When I went to relook, he'd be finished. That's an example of great outsourcing. Outsourcing sometimes doesn't necessarily come the way you want it. And you got to be careful with it. So many streamers have blinders on right now, and I think Steam is going to be a great thing, so I can't wait to see what happens here. So I think a lot of the streamers you see, including, I know 2 of these streamers. I don't know them personally, but I know their work. I think Nice and Vladis do good work because their goal is growth in their channels. They do really, really good work. They want to grow. They want to be creators. They want to be influential. That's great. They do good work. I don't know the other 2. The problem with that is, you're right. A lot of content creators for Ashes, a lot of the Phoenix Initiative, a lot of the founders, myself included, I'm guilty of this. I was guilty of this for 5 years. When you keep giving the benefit of the doubt, you keep giving the benefit of the doubt and you keep filling somebody with false encouragement. The product doesn't get there. And I know we're supposed to be living in a kinder, gentler era. But I want you to really just think about your own childhood. If you played sports and you're not a professional athlete, what happened? If you played sports as a little kid and you loved it, why aren't you a professional at it? Especially when you have the kids that with the parents like, oh, it's okay, Timmy. You did your best. My coach was like, I remember I was pitching. Runners on first and second, no outs. Coach walks out. I took the ball and I went to hand it to him and he's like, oh, fuck no, you ain't giving me the ball. I kind of looked at him. I'm like a 12 or 13-year-old kid. And he's like, hell no, you don't get no relief pitcher. And I was like, but he's like, you just put runners on first and second with no outs. This is your problem. I'm just coming out here to chew your ass and give you a minute to get your mind right. You better pitch your way out of this. That's a good coach. Hey man, you're fucking up the program. Get with it. Imagine for a second if everybody, instead of rah-rahing Ashes for the last, and I'll just say 2 years. Imagine if everybody, instead of falsely rah-rahing Ashes for 2 years, they had all been hardline as fuck. Imagine if everybody came out with, that ain't it. That ain't it. Instead of saying, like somebody said yesterday, the combat is great. No, the combat's not great. No, it's not. Objectively, no, it's not. It's acceptable. At this stage in development, the combat is exceptional. Well, I think it's great. Okay, well then what word are you going to use when you get to level 50 and you have subclasses or classes and you have augments and now you have all the new skills that they introduce and all the skill changes they're introducing and all the synergies? If it's great now, what are you going to call it in its final form? How do you complement it? That's why the quote is, good is the enemy of best. Best is the enemy of better. Instead of people rah-rahing the shit out of this game, Yeah, it's acceptable. The combat's acceptable. Keep going in the direction you're going. It ain't there yet, but you're on the right route. Or this ain't it at all. At this point, since they have 25 raids, I wouldn't be surprised if they launched the game at level 25. I think they're at the point where they're going to launch because they're broke. As I said once upon a time, and then I'll get back to the interview, when it comes to project management, there's lots and lots of ways to manage a project, but the idea of project management boils down to only two ways to do things. It's today, and I want to build product, and I go and get a project manager, and I say, I want to build this project, I want to build this thing out, and the project manager says, I need this many man hours. Now, man hours, not people. I need this many man hours, this many other resources, and this much money. And I'll have the project built. You'll notice what's on here isn't time. They haven't said I need X amount of time. They said I need X amount of man hours, X amount of resources, X amount of money. And then if you say I need it sooner, that changes that. If you need it later, that changes that. But they give you this is what it's going to cost to make it. And we'll get there within a 90-day window, give or take. If you come to the project manager and you say, I need this product, then the project manager is going to say, well, the man hours for that are up. The resources are up. The money is up. Because I have no flexibility, which means I need to onboard solutions to problems, and I'm going to need a much bigger war chest because I don't have the option of delay. You a fixed date, it's going to cost this much. Intrepid now seems to have pivoted where they once said we'll launch when it's ready to now they kind of desperately are trying to get into beta next year. There's no way this game is in beta next year. There's no way the game Steven has described in this interview is in beta next year. They said beta next year several times. My opinion of the Ashes of Creation project, I think Steven is tired and ready to get out from under this project, and we're about to see every shortcut and slash on the original idea and be done with it. Probably. They did tell you how much time they need. They told you man hours, which means it's up to you to say how many developers you need in order to hit your launch window. Well, yeah, but man hours isn't a time, because if I need 100,000 man hours and you give me 1,000 employees, that's half a year. Where are my manners? Good morning. Good morning to you.
Said that we should do this panel. I didn't even think until after we had scheduled it. I was like, boy, this is going to be a tough panel. We've got all walks of life in our interviewers, asking across the board. How am I going to, especially after a long day?
So obviously I speak for the PvP lobby, so they've got some nasty questions. So Ashes of Creation is said to be a PvX game. However, the last few phases have included many changes that were very much anti-PvP, and many joke the game turned into a farming simulator. Many MMORPG players have severe trauma from PvP features being watered down, made irrelevant, or entirely removed over time. While this upcoming patch does seem to be PvP friendly on its surface, many are concerned that the PvP features will inevitably be watered down or trivialized over time. How much PvP in general, relative to what we've seen thus far in the game, do you expect moving forward? More, less, or about the same as we've seen in the past?
So,
before I let Steven answer, we talked about PvP ad nauseum for years. Ashes of Creation, in its 4,000 page game design document that I'm sure exists somewhere, had more than enough PvP options that you could have removed open world PvP entirely. Node sieges, castle sieges, node wars, guild wars, caravans, arena, and then they opened up lawless areas and the whole ocean. There were 8 areas of PvP, and people were still fixated on open world ganking. And yet nobody could ever make an articulate argument about why open world ganking should continue to exist. I haven't really followed Ashes, but what I've heard during this interview so far is many of the systems aren't online. So I bet Steven's answer is going to be more PvP is coming as we online more of these systems.
Let me contain the rage that you cannot see above the surface from that question.
It's a nasty one.
I know. It's okay. It's okay. No, just kidding. I don't have any rage. Listen, the reality of it is that anybody who's heard me speak about the design philosophy of Ashes understands that PvX is equal parts PvP and PvE. That is just that's the simple truth of the game's philosophical tenets. I've talked about this before. A designer can curate an experience up the wazoo, and it will never have the volatility that a human mind has between what is possible and what a state tree can derive. So at the end of the day, when we're talking about the types of risk you can experience, PvP risk is the most spontaneous, it's the most unpredictable, it's the most emotionally involved. All of those things are good in a PvX design. We want those things, right? At the same time, when you're talking about how do I build value? How do I build up the world? What is the importance in order to perform in PvP on the PvE player? There is a synergy and a symbiosis there between the population that likes to be sharks and the population that is, for lack of a better term, a minnow. And you need to separate those play spaces to a degree. A lot of our designs are opt-in. A lot of the events that have PvP-centric, elements to it are you choosing to go to that area, you choosing to be a part of that event, you opting into this particular guild.
Yeah.
Those are choices that you as a player, you get to make those choices. But as the backdrop against the entire world is that open world flagging system, which again is not predominant in how you might experience, corruption from people who are just going to murder you outright. That's very, very, very rare.
No, it's not. Let me stop him right there. No, it is not. No, it is not. It happens in every game. It happens in Ashes of Creation. It would continue to be a problem because as long as you allow the option to be a douchebag, people will opt to be a douchebag. Period. Dot. Well, I don't necessarily. People rob each other in the real world. Why do you think their behavior in an online game is going to be better? Well, because there's penalties. There's penalties in the real world for people being douchebags. And the human nature is to be a douchebag. The state of nature is people don't respect each other. That's why we have laws to force people to respect each other. You think a video game is going to be more civilized? People are going to gank streamers to max XP debt and not care. Right. 100%.
So to some degree, there has to be, again, harmony between those two systems. Going forward, more or less are about the same. To answer that question, we are going to have equal parts PvP and PvE. And the statement, the preface, the context that you gave to this question, you say that to a PvP player, they're going to say, yeah, Zybek's right, this is true, that happened. You say it to a PvE player, they're going to say, that's bullshit, there's so much PvP in this game, it's unbelievable, right? Like, how do I know the decisions I'm making are right? Both the PvP players and the PvE players are bitching.
This is how you know Steven doesn't have a background in leadership. He has a background in management. He completely glossed over the fact PvE and PvP are not in Ashes in equal parts when you have an open world flagging system. If you have an open world flagging system, your game is a PvP game because I can never opt out of PvP. The only thing Ashes would have to do is change the open world flag, dump the corruption system, because you've got 2 years of data. And the problem is, I can imagine the conversation about the corruption that they glean from their testing and somebody dismissing it saying, well, it doesn't matter because they all know that this is a test environment anyway, and it doesn't have any meaningful repercussions. Because the corruption system doesn't have any meaningful repercussions. Some people have different reactions. If I took a flower from someone, they may let me go, they may gank me, they may put me on a guild KOS list. You're right. The problem is, Steven is right where the majority of their systems are opt-in. So make all of the systems opt-in. And then instead of trying to create, like I said yesterday, one of the examples, because somebody said, how would I change it? So in a node, I would have 3 levels of citizenship. I would have civilians, I would have citizens, and I would have garrison. Now, citizen is the default. If we go to war, you'll get asked if you want to be part of the war. If we go to a siege, you'll be asked if you want to be part of the siege. If you're a civilian, your answer is always no and no, and you can't change it. If you're part of the garrison, your answer is always yes and yes, and you cannot change it. Now, a civilian can elect to become a citizen. A civilian can elect to then become a member of the garrison. A member of the garrison, at the end of whatever incentive cycle is over, could elect to downgrade themselves to a citizen, so they have a choice. Now, how do you make this worthwhile? You simply create a skill tree that the longer you're in a garrison of node A1B1, you're getting PvP points that are only applicable in wars, and node sieges. If you're a citizen, every time a war comes up, you opt in to being a part of the garrison. When a siege comes up, you opt in to being a part of the garrison. The civilians, they're non-combatants. Now, how does this change the nature of the game? Because I'm out mining rocks, or I'm out picking plants, right? And I'm out fishing, but not out in the deep water, and I'm not collecting the expensive fish. I'm just getting the bullshit fish. Then I can't be killed. I cannot be killed. Now is a PvEer. And people are like, well, you don't know that would work. You don't have any background. Look at EVE Online. EVE Online has struggled to ever get a meaningful player base because twice a year, Goon Swarm runs around HiSec, blowing up mining barges, and so people get their ship blown up, and they're like, okay, well, it was cool, but I'm done. I'm out. Not the game for me. Would EVE Online be better if it had 150,000 players instead of 50,000 players? Fuck yes, it would, because that's an awful lot of extra money every month, and money pays for developers. Now, what about the people who say, well, I want the risk of the open world? I want the risk in the open world that I could be attacked at any time. Great. Then you go into your flag and you set your flag as yes. And you say, I want to be PvPable at all times. New World did this. And if New World had more meaningful PvP built around it, then this system works. For example, I dislocated my thumb about a month ago. And so for the better part of a month, I had a thumb brace on. It impacted my play. If I was playing a game where it was open world PvP with meaningful death, I wouldn't have been playing because I couldn't readily use my left hand. That you don't want to create situations where people don't want to play your game. You want to create situations where, like Steven said, there's a PvE aspect to the game and the PvP aspect to the game, and every one of those things needs to be mutually beneficial. Steven said it's a world of sharks and minnows. That's a bad analogy. It's a world of wolves and sheep. Open world flagging is not mutually beneficial to the sheep. Open world PvP is not a net sum zero. It is a net gain and a net loss. And people say, well, everybody can get involved in PvP. Then you're ignoring the idea that you got the PvP that you wanted. Now, Magnus, you said loot equals loot plus XP bonus. Job done. No, you shouldn't get any bonus for opting in. Here's why. What you wanted was the PvP. So why do I have to give you a reward for flagging up when what you wanted was PvP? If I have to give you a reward to do it, it kind of sounds like you don't really want to do it. I got to motivate you to do it. And what you're saying is you want the sheep to have to flag to get the bonus, and what they don't want is to PvP. You did if you create an optional flagging system but then give a reward to the flagging system, you've changed happy to glad. You changed it from blue to 1 pixel shade different blue. You didn't make a meaningful change. If you want the risk of being able to be jumped and be able to jump other people who want to be jumped, you've gotten the reward. I'm not gonna buy you a puppy to take you to the ice cream store because you want ice cream. It's about efficiency even to PvPers. It's more efficient to grind, not flagged. I don't care about it's more efficient to grind, not flagged. Then exactly what you just said, Magnus, is your number one thing then isn't the threat of open world PvP. So you don't really want it. You only want it if I give you an incentive. Yeah, you're not grinding, you're wanting to PvP. If you're wanting to grind, then keep your flag off and do the more efficient thing, because what you're choosing to do right now is grind, not PvP. We know why these people want open world permaflag for PvP. They want to kill weaker players or grief people. The amount of fair engagements is 1% max. You're absolutely right. Just an anecdotal story. I lived in Rookborn Basin in Arcage, where the most, until Hasla, the cars came out, the most lucrative trade packs came out of Rookborn Basin. And you did that little thing where you came down, you flipped over the mountain into Falcorth, and then you went to Ostera. Well, people would PvP up there to take the packs. So my guild lived right there, and it was half the time my own guildmates getting attacked. So we'd all go and we'd post 8-10 guards at the Rookborn Basin jump over until they were gone with their packs. But that was an opt-in system. I used to tell my guild, if you make a pack and you haven't told anybody you're making packs so we can put a couple of guards there, you opted into getting killed because you put a pack on your back. And I think that's where the PvPers, I respect the PvPer perspective that a lot of these games don't have meaningful PvP, because they don't have enough meaningful PvP. But the key word is meaningful PvP. If you put in systems to your game that cause the Care Bears to not play, why would I grind mobs flagged and put myself at that disadvantage? Then let's just take flagging out altogether. Because what you're missing is, I said for the people who say, I want the threat of the open world PvP, let them flag up. Why would you do it? Because you want the PvP. Because let's be honest, if you're running around with your flag on, you're not gonna wait till the person finishes killing the tiger before you jump on them. You're gonna jump on them when they're at half health killing the tiger. Open world PvP is a lazy fucking solution to give people when they whine and they cry that they want PvP. I want to give you meaningful PvP. For example, I think the arenas, I think there should be not just 1v1s, 2s, 3s, 5s, and 8s. There should be capture the flag. There should be king of the hill. There should be last man standing. There should be a sport like Hutball. Obviously you can't do Hutball, but there should be a sport, right? And then give the PvPers multiple things to go and do so that they completely forget about the fact that there's no open world flagging. With that said, you're moving a trade pack, you're flagged. You're moving a caravan, you're flagged. I wasn't exactly in love with the idea of these lawless areas, but I think the lawless areas make a lot of sense, because now you can keep the bounty hunting system. And how do you make a little pivot on the lawless areas and the bounty hunting system? When you go into the lawless area, you're flagged for PvP. But if you kill another player, you get tagged with the M debuff. And that debuff, let's say that debuff lasts 10 minutes after you leave the lawless area. Well, now you've created a good opportunity for the bounty hunting system. You go into the lawless area and you kill murderers. You can even expand on that if you want. You don't have to, but if you leave the camera rolling, you could even set it up that if enough murderers in the lawless area get killed by bounty hunters, it might maybe potentially flip that area to a safe area for X amount of time. Now, we have to be careful with that because, again, we have to look at it under a microscope because chances are then that gatherers would manipulate the system with alts in order to flip the flag so that it goes to peace. So I said not a guaranteed, but we could look at it. But we could still keep the bounty hunting system so that you run around the lawless area killing people that are marked with the M debuff. You could even go so far as to make bounty hunters, when they enter the flagged area, they have to enter as a man of the law or a woman of the law. They can't kill anybody in that area other than murderers. So I don't, and the fastest way to do this is, if I'm in bounty hunter status, I don't see any health bars other than people that have the murderer debuff. So now you've added lawless areas where people can go in PvP, and you've put a meaningful PvP activity on top of that. I think that sounds a hell of a lot better for both sides, where both sides benefit, versus a system where you can run around and randomly gank. And most people will agree, if they're PvPers, wait, so you're talking about you don't want to take PvP away, you just want to give me I'm gonna give you fuck tons of meaningful PvP. I said yesterday, an idea that I've had now for years, is guilds should not be made up of 50 random people. Guilds in any game, not just Ashes, any game should do this. Guilds should be made up of families. And this should be divided. I'm just going to use 50 because it's nice and neat. Parties are 5. So families are 10. Families are 10 people. Guilds are 5 families. What you've done now is you've taken a random loose association of 50 random people who all share the same guild tag. And maybe instead of 5 families, we do 4 families and 10 randos. Maybe we do that. I mean, we could walk through the process. A guild is made up of families and randos. And then you can have family feuds. I don't want to take on your whole guild, but the Jalan family got robbed by the Moonbringer family, and the Jalan family has family feuded the Moonbringer family. Now, wherever we go, we're red to each other. My 10 and your 10 are always red to each other. Now, unfortunately for the Moonbringer family, I'm also the guild leader. So not only do I declare a family feud on you, but I declare a guild war on your guild. So now, because you decided to steal from me, everywhere you go, my family can kill your family and vice versa. And my guild's at war with your guild, and I say to your guild leader, hey man, all I have to say is that one of the families of your guild robbed mine. So until I don't see their guild tag on the Moonbringer family, we're gonna be at war with you. That sounds a hell of a lot better of meaningful PvP than running around killing the guy or girl or whatever, picking flowers.
That's true.
Yeah.
If that's true, it's likely we found the sweet spot right in the middle. If everybody agrees with one another, then we've probably done something wrong. It's time to look around and say, you know, have you ever played a game of Secret Hitler? It's like, you know, everybody voted in favor of this policy. Oh shit, there's a fascist in the group.
Wait a minute. Doesn't that mean you've achieved enlightenment? Both PvE and PvE, or PvP and PvE are hitting that PvX?
No, we want people to have something to complain about. That's how you know you've made a good deal.
Yeah, I guess the
Typical
concern,
gamers.
the concern that the PvPers have is that they've just sort of seen features that used to exist and the way things used to be, just sort of like brick by brick get taken away in a lot of contexts, and
Yeah.
they have PTSD from the other MMOs like
And rightfully
New World,
so.
which
Right-
is
rightfully
literally
Must stop right here. If you say that you have PTSD from a video game, go fuck yourself.
like they changed the game after the
Yeah.
alpha.
Look,
So-
you're
so, like,
you're stating the premise for why Intrepid was founded.
Okay.
We're not making decisions off of market data and what acquires the most amount of users and how can we appeal to the greatest audience and how do we defeat, Final Fantasy 14 and build the next WoW and the Guild Wars 2. Like, that was not our mission statement. Our mission statement is we see a hole in the market for the MMORPG genre, a design hole. What is that design hole? It's a truly PvX game, a non-faction based, guild-driven, friend-driving, massively multiplayer, predicated on player action and having agency over the world-building component. And PvP is around the corner, and PvE is the most relevant accomplishment that you can have to build the world and acquire the things you want. Those two dynamics are what is synergistic in the PvX design. And I'm not going to say that there's not a great PvX game out there. I played a lot of great PvX games, but there is an opportunity, I think, to bring the systems depth that we are trying to bring here with Ashes of Creation into the fold, while also having that PvX design element and philosophy.
EVE Online. EVE Online. You have just described EVE Online. And because you're trying to be the fantasy version of EVE Online, you need to look at EVE Online and all of the problems that EVE Online has. And you haven't done that because you're going to have the same problems that EVE has. And here's the even more dangerous statement. There are people who literally believe that 100,000 users is all Intrepid needs to stay open. So we're going to take this 100,000 users, and we're going to times it by 12. And that's $18 million. Okay? That's $18 million in their first year. Except a portion of those 100,000 users have lifetime subs. And a portion of those 100,000 users have 12 months of sub time, 11 months of sub time, 9, 6, and 3. So Ashes of Creation is going to need a hell of a lot more than 100,000 users to stay relevant. Also, in the first year, I'm taking all the mandatory cuts off Intrepid's money. Before Intrepid even sees, no, not 100,000 concurrent, 100,000 subscribers. So before Intrepid even sees a penny of money in that first year, the 100,000 is doable, but it's not feasible. Before Intrepid even sees a penny of money in that first year, if they have 100,000 paying users, they're already down. They make 18 million in that year. They lose 3 million out of the first 10 to Steam. They lose 2 million out of the next 8 to Steam. They lose 850,000 to Epic. That means they're down to 12,150,000. And then let's say let's say 35% of the subscribers are referred. What Intrepid has done by moving to Steam is they've taken multiple cuts off the $15 a month sub, because Epic takes 5% off the 15. Steam takes 25% off the 15, and the referral program takes 15% off of the 15. That's a lot of fucking cuts off of your top dollar amount. Intrepid, so this is where I've said I don't blame Intrepid for everything. I do blame their fan base. Some of their fan base has said they can get away with only having 100,000 paying customers. But Steven has said he's probably going to be around the $55 to $80 million mark of his own money invested. Also, we do a simple number. It's not an accurate number. It's a simple number to cover. They have 250 employees times $10,000 a month times 12 months in a year. And why you do 10K a month, not everybody makes 10K a month, but you just, if you don't want to start dicking around with office space, leases, utilities, all that, you just do $10,000 per employee. And it's just a nice, fast, dirty way. This is what you need minimum a year to have a company of 250 employees. So these fan base that say stuff like, well, Ashes only needs 100,000 people to be viable. That puts them 18 million short on on sustainment. And that's just to keep the 250 when they do the layoffs, maybe. Yeah, you're talking about, and remember, right now, starting today, Intrepid has 250 employees. Starting today, more of their team moves away from development and they pivot to ops and sustainment. Now, I'm sure they've had a percentage of the team on ops and sustainment for the year and a half, 2 years, however long they've had Alpha 2 up. But the player base doesn't get it. Yeah, now, and this is where would Intrepid even see over 50% of the Steam money after paying for servers and everything? Well, I didn't even get that far down the list. You have 100% of the money on Steam. You owe Epic 5% off the top as a cut. You owe Steam 30%. You owe 15% off the top cut to your referrals. And then remember, if they lose that one lawsuit, they probably won't see anything. Well, so realistically speaking, I don't even know what the cost of this is going to be on Steam, because they don't have the pre-order, they don't have any of that available. I don't know. Does anybody know the dollar amount off? Was it $50? $42.50 is what they said. Oh, it's a really weird dollar amount. $42.50 for the sale. That's 30. So that means Intrepid is going to see about $27.30. Intrepid will see about $27.30 out of every sale they make on Steam. So, and of course, they're not paying the referrals out, but that's how you know this is all about money. And I hate to be a dick, I hate to be a jerk, but that's how you know it's all about money. I guess the real money maker is going to be skins and shit then. Yeah, and if they do, oh no, I'm sorry, they've indicated.
That's what I think is missing.
They've indicated in-app purchases, which if they put the store through Steam, if you put your store through Steam, then you owe the money to Steam on all the transactions that Steam processes for you. If you have to load the money into your Steam wallet or you check out through Steam, Steam takes their cut. If you go to their website you buy something into your account inventory and then their payment processor processes it. Steam doesn't take a cut, which is why I was shocked that they abandoned their own launcher. But if they're putting it at $50 and they're putting it on sale on the day it goes on early access, then every single thing Steven says about this being more testers is totally bunk. It's about the money. If it was really about making it more accessible, you'd put it up there for 50 and not put it on sale. If it was really about getting dedicated testers, you'd put that. Well, no, they're not charging a box price. They're charging for the early access, the same way that they've charged people for early access in the past. But if this was really about just being more accessible, they would throw it up there for the same price that they were currently charging for their founders packs, which is why you know it's about money. It's also, what I think is funny is you're putting it on sale, which violates you're launching it on sale, which violates every tenet, every facet of advertising. If you say this is a product that's only worth $42, and I can't believe, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it any more thoroughly. You're trying to decide what your price point would be. So you do market research and you're trying to price an item. And what you're going to get back from the data is something like this. They're going to say, okay, you've got 5 price points. And at this price point, you're going to sell 100,000 copies. At this price point, you're going to sell 250,000 copies. At this price point, you're going to sell 500,000 copies. At this price point, you're going to sell 750,000 copies. And at this price point, you're going to sell 1 million copies. And you're going to get this chart. But then, if you've done good market research for like an advertising firm, like from a Leo Burnett or a DDB Worldwide, what they're going to have is they're going to have this other column. And it's going to be, if you launch at this price and you eventually do your cascade sales, you're going to have a total of 1 million sales. If you start here, you're going to have a total of we'll say 1.1 million sales. If you start here, you're going to have 1.2 million sales. And if you start here, you're going to have 2 million sales. It's going to say because if you start your product at $25, you're not going to have as many people interested in, because you're going to lose them when you try to take a $25 bite. So ultimately you say, this is our price point, because it's going to give us the most money. And it's a complex, it's a calculus problem where you find the absolute maxima based. It's not a simple one, because it's a simple math formula, but it's a complex advertising analysis. And you're basically saying, we have to not just figure out how many we're going to sell at this price point, but are we going to alienate customers by starting one price above this or 2 prices above this? Because if it worked in simple logic, I'd sell it for 25 for an amount of time, then go to 20, then to 15. Yeah, the math is simple. The psychology and the sales valuation is not, which I never, like, I'll admit, when I was a younger man working in advertising and marketing, I never understood why Leo Burnett and DDB Needham kept the mathematicians on board. I thought we just need statisticians. And then I learned all the fucking, I'm like, fuck the math. I can't do that shit. I don't know what you do. I don't want to know what you do. Just give me good numbers, Jimmy. Just give me good numbers.
Broad spectrum systems depth MMO with the PBX philosophy. And that's the space I think Ashes fills. Now, is it going to be the largest space? No, it's not. It will not be the largest space. By the simple fact that we have PvP in the game, we will cut out a large portion of the MMORPG market share. That is just a truth. We're okay with that, because we believe that the market share that's interested in our PBX design is large enough to sustain the project, right? Obviously, to sustain the project and be very profitable, I think. So, at the end of the day, that's our mission statement. And so long as I retain 100% creative control of the product, that is going to be the case.
How can somebody have the answer staring them in the face. Steven, with that statement right there, my personal belief is that he's suffering from the sunk cost fallacy. He's too far into development to understand he's 80 miles down bad road. He literally said, we understand that we cut away a large chunk of the potential market base, and we're okay with that. So I would like to know who in the hell did numbers, and is he said he's okay with it, but what I would like to know is who the hell did the numbers and presented them, and what numbers was he presented with? Let me just do a real quick. What did we say? Okay, so 250 employees times 10,000 times 12 months. So in-house employees, we're going to go with 30 million annually. And then we're going to do 100 contractors times 10,000, another 12 million in contractors. And then we're going to take we're going to take $75 million, and we're going to divide that by 5. And let's say that there's a recoup plan for him to recoup the $75 million that he invested in Intrepid over 5 years, which is a shit return on investment. And so we'll do an ROI of 15 million. Actually, we'll do. Okay, so we'll do an ROI of 15 million a year. 30 plus 12 plus 15. So that's 57 million a year. And we're going to add on 9.7% because 9.7% of the company is owned by an outsider, and that person's going to want to be compensated. It's not exactly how you would do it, but we're going to just do it that way. So you need 62.5 million a year. And at 62,500,000 divided by 12, we need to make 5 million a month. And at 520,800 divided by, we'll do 15. We won't do any bulk buying. You need to have 347,200 paying customers a month. Anything under 347,200 paying customers a month. And I don't see a break-even point. I see then you having to offload contractors to save money. So you lose capability. I see having to lay off people. Development number, I don't breaking even on that number. No, they'll break even on this number. This number is a break even number. Where is this cosmetic shop you guys keep talking about? Is the cosmetic shop on Steam? Because you're like the third or fourth. Oh, it's the shop. Did they really reskin previous skins? They did. They reskinned previous skins. Yeah, they reskinned previous skins. The dragon pet was from the very first one they did. And so if you remember, Steven specifically emphatically said they would not do reskins. Oh no, we know. Let me stop you for a second there. And we've known forever that there was going to be cash sales stops. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. We've always known. I have it saved, but as I said, my gaming PC decided that it wanted to go the way of the dinosaur. Let me see if I can find this quote from Steven really quickly. Oh, I can't. Oh, well, let me do that. So if you remember, I got in trouble years and years ago for bringing this point up. My investment will be likely above 40 million. You can also expect an average revenue per paying user probably closer to $23 a month for Ashes of Creation. No, Steven always said there would be FOMO. That's a great question, but let me tell you the truth about marketing. All marketing is FOMO. That's all marketing is. It's fear of missing out. Every exclusive monthly cosmetic set they've ever sold has been FOMO. It's always been FOMO. FOMO is marketing. Act now, don't delay. Supplies are limited. It's always FOMO.
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Very nice.
All right. Some players don't feel much connection to their settlement. They're feeling that settlement attachment is missing, and we're seeing players switch settlements often. What future plans do you have to make players feel more connected to / invested in their settlement and its success?
Before Steven answers, I'm just going to say this. It's a fair question because it addresses a player concern, but the only answer you should see is not all the systems are online. A lot of the systems that are going to make you feel connected to your settlement and its success are not yet online. So just be patient as we online systems because it is a work in development. That should be the answer.
Okay, feel more connected and invested in their settlement and its success. That is a great question.
It is.
I think that there are a lot of systems, polished systems, accompanying systems that are still outstanding for node design, as we know. A lot of the things I just talked about with the commissions and buy orders, being handled by the social organizations, the religious organizations, and the patron guilds components, like those types of things induct players into their pseudo faction. You might call settlements. Settlements are a pseudo faction. We're a non-faction based game, but we have a lot of pseudo factions in it, right? Those organizations I talked about, settlements in and of themselves, guilds that you choose to be a part of, those are all pseudo factions because you're not tied to them eternally. You can leave them at a given point and make a new decision, but when you're a part of them, you depend on the success of your peers within that location or within that organization. So I think doubling down on introducing those additional features to the settlement system will add to players feeling invested. I think having the threat of loss and just having investment, right? Investment intrinsically contains the opportunity for loss. Right now, there is no opportunity for loss, so it's not an investment. By making it an investment and knowing you can lose that thing and that the investment required your time and your effort and your resources to benefit you in the long run, you now become more interested in its success because its success is not a sure thing. That's a central philosophical tenet. So by making it an investment, you will curry more interest and dedication and commitment because players ultimately pursue power. And so long as that investment can return power, or there are players that pursue immersion, that pursue, influence. Exactly. Thank you. And again, the settlement system is intended to be a vehicle for all of those things. And so long as that vehicle then becomes not a sure thing, you're going to be interested in its survival and success.
Nice.
So, kind of building off the settlement, just sentiment, is mitigating guilds from controlling multiple settlements still a primary focus for Intrepid? Or has player behavior changed design intention over the past year? Are castles intended? Oh my gosh. Our
Nintendo?
castles intend yeah, exactly.
Like,
Our castles intended to be the main driver for top guilds to fight over freeing the settlements of their control.
Okay. This is a bad question. And the reason why it's a bad question, and I don't know how Steven's going to answer it, but years and years and years ago, this was brought up. I had multiple people in my guild that said they would be interested in being a mayor. And I said, great, be a mayor of a node nearby to where the guild base is. I said this, and a lot of people disagreed with me. If your thing is to be a mayor, the guild leader needs to not try to tell you, you became a mayor, you now have to take actions in that node that benefit the guild, because the guild member might leave the guild because they want to focus on being a mayor. And then they might build a guild around the citizenship of the node. At the same time, it is very short-sighted to believe that guilds would not attempt to control the nodes. Unless there's been a change, and there very well could be, because I haven't stayed on top of Ashes of Creation since like 21, maybe July of 22. There's no guild leader requirement. There's no guild officer requirement to be the mayor. Nodes are not guild content to begin with. So, yes, guilds can control nodes because they're not a guild mechanic. You could be a single player and be the mayor of a node. See what Steven says as the answer.
okay. Let's see. Do we have that question updated? Okay, mitigating guilds from the controlling multiple. Yes. Okay. So to answer the first part of the question, is it a focus for us to mitigate guilds exerting control over multiple settlements? The answer is yes. Now, will we be successful in fully mitigating that? The answer is no. What mitigation means is we want to make it difficult, right? So that, it's not impossible, but it is very difficult to do. And especially the larger the settlement is. That I think is a key component, because the larger the settlement is, the more influence and power it contains. So that's a scaling problem. And we want to make sure that all the mitigation factors that make it more difficult for guilds to exert this multi-settlement pressure scales with that power and influence. So if a guild were to focus on, let's say, controlling potentially 2 smaller, less influential, less trafficked settlements, that is more achievable, but still very difficult to do. So to answer your second part of your question, has player behavior changed design intention? No, they have not. So that is still our intention.
Well, then yes, your player intention has changed, because your player intention 9 years ago was that nodes weren't guild content.
Castle's intended to be the main. I'm sorry, give me one second.
The main driver for top guilds.
Okay, give me 1 sec.
Okay.
Got it. Okay, sorry about that. So, our castle is intended to be the main driver for the top guilds to fight over, bring settlements out of their controls. The answer to that is 2-part. Yes, castles are still intended to be the hold on, I'm sorry. I just got a cool DM from Svant. Svant, brother!
Let's go.
He's asking if I want to do a Q&A tomorrow with his stream.
Do it.
I
That's my
would
boy.
love to chat with you and your community, brother.
Dude, I can't wait for that one.
Do it live.
Thank you, Steven. That's gonna be awesome.
Okay, sorry. So to answer that question, castles will absolutely be an objective of guilds. They will be the primary objective of guilds. They will be the
Okay, so if castles are the primary objective of guilds, then why are you worried about mitigating guilds controlling multiple nodes?
most influential and powerful trophy that a guild can acquire. And so, how do you precipitate human behavior? It's through reward. In that sense, reward will be the top objective. Will that address or free their control over settlements? I don't think so. I think that is a separate vertical of power and influence. they will house and contain two different reward structures. And as a result, guilds will pursue both. However, again, the settlement will have fail-safes as it relates to mitigating that control overall. Why am I getting blown up in Discord right now?
Okay, so if you're going to put external controls on a guild being able to control settlements, then you're not a player-driven game. You're a developer-driven game. There's nothing wrong with being a developer-driven game. But remember, Sandbox and Theme Park are a spectrum. So over here you have Theme Park, and you have almost zero player control. And I'm talking the purest of theme parks. And all the way on the other end, you have Sandbox, which is 100% player control. And there is no such thing as a sandbox game as is. Minecraft is actually closest to a sandbox platform because the world creator can introduce a lot of items and do a lot of modding and do all that. EVE Online is the closest sandbox game, not sandbox development platform. And even then, there are still controls, but they're limited. But this idea that you're saying Second Life was the most pure sandbox game I can imagine, I would say Second Life was probably on the same dot as EVE Online. Maybe potentially a little closer to more pure sandbox than EVE Online. Maybe.
I apologize, everybody. Okay, Espen says, cool, let's do it. Very excited to chat with
Nice.
the community tomorrow, Espen. Okay, next question. Did that answer your question?
That's pretty good. So I have one, Stephen, because coming as a PvE player myself, primarily from World of Warcraft, I've actually really enjoyed the PvX dynamic, just saying. But caravans are a huge topic right now. And caravans brought some really epic PvP moments and a lot of group fun in phases 1 and 2. But with the Crate Systems release and the safer mule transport on the horizon, players are skipping them as they're being too risky, low reward. What tweaks like speed buffs, better loot splits, any anti-griefing tools that are planned potentially for early access or even further beyond for caravans? Make them great again, Stephen.
Okay, before Steven answers, there shouldn't be anti-griefing tools for caravans. There shouldn't be any anti-griefing tools because they're player-generated content. Steven, yesterday in the yesterday during the video segment pieces that we watched, Steven talked about you don't put band-aids around bugs. You don't put band-aids, you don't put fixes around bugs, you don't design things around bugs, you fix the bugs. The only way you can grief a caravan is if you're exploiting some sort of mechanic. The crate system was a dumb addition to the game. The crate system was literally, we had this idea for caravans and it doesn't work, so we made it so you can transport a pack on your back, which means you go different ways that caravans can't. And I mean, they did fix the speed problem. All the mounts were moving at full speed with a caravan on your back. But again, there should be a risk. Now, what he said though, if I get the same reward by loading 20 people with a pack on their back and moving 20 people through the forest to get into the trade pack recipient versus putting a caravan on the road, that's going to be a PvP mechanic outright. It is live. I'm downloading. I'm at about 77%. If trade packs don't automatically flag you, and I don't know if they do or if they don't, but if trade packs don't automatically flag you, then what you did is you created a workaround to a system. Trade pack, you put a pack on your back, you should be flagged for PvP because you're engaging with the caravan system. Whether or not you're moving a caravan, I shouldn't have to suffer corruption to kill you to take your trade pack. you are engaged in what should be a flaggable mechanic. Or if you want to give people the way to make safe gold, then the trade pack system should be tiny. It's 56.3 gigs.
Make caravans. Okay, so this is another byproduct of having outstanding feature support done here. Now, I agree with you. Caravans inhabit an entirely separate play space. These are roaming open world battlegrounds, essentially, that should have a high investment, high reward profile. And right now, that is being usurped by the introduction of the crate system and the introduction of mules. Always, again, an intended design to have those things, but what often happens in development, because we want to test a feature as soon as possible in order to potentially iterate it as quickly as necessary, or experience whatever downfalls and issues that it might have that would inform later systems that accompany it. We introduced the caravan without all of its necessary components and feature sets, and we introduced the crate system and mule system without all of its corresponding features. So now what we've done is
This right here, I don't care. I'll be a shithead. That right there is a statement made by Steven that indicates that he's a bad leader. He's a bad leader because people underneath him are giving him bullshit answers that anybody with a background in leadership would automatically flag and say, that doesn't make any sense. It's Gigo. It's garbage in, garbage out. If I put this into test, right, then the data I get should be used as a fork, as a decision point. I don't know what I want to do with it, so I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. But if what you said was, we put the system in here at this time point, and we had other features we already knew we wanted to include, any data you gathered in here goes, you chuck it in the fuck it bucket. Because none of that data means anything because you already know that you have other features you want to put in. So there's absolutely no point in doing that iteration. Well, we're doing it because you're doing it so that there's content for people to do. You're doing it to give the illusion, the illusion of
a current state
of feedback. You're creating the problem so that you can sell the solution. And that's common. What you're doing is you're setting it up so that it looks like you care about the player response. But in all actuality, you don't. What you care about is making it look like you have content developed. Turn that off. That doesn't get picked up as. Well then. So their launcher launches to the old Intrepid launcher. It automatically, I don't have to log in though. It automatically grabbed my credentials through Steam. It's initializing. It's waiting for the game. I currently have a black screen. Oh. Maybe. Look at that. Oh, it's compiling shaders. Okay. We're gonna be a minute while it's compiling shaders. Steam charts for the game is active now. Maybe a bit early to check though. I think it would be very grossly unfair to check now. Number one, it's the middle of a workday on a Thursday. Can't believe I'm finally buying and getting to play this game since I saw the start of the Kickstarter. I wouldn't be buying it today. I absolutely would not be buying it today. That's I would be waiting. Certain individuals are susceptible to and may experience seizures, blackouts, or other epileptic symptoms. I'm one of those people. Okay, unfortunately, because of how this machine is set up, this is meant to be a streaming box only. It's not meant to be a gaming box. So I'm going to have some issues gaming on the same machine as streaming. Yeah, and I can't change frames per second while I'm live. We'll see how it goes. Hey, look at that. A queue of 0. Oh, need to... Well, questions always welcomed. Where's the other one? Create a character. All right, so... Please tell me how cringe that people are still downloading yet. There's already people with 3-hour head start or even more against people with shittier internet. I guess a lot of people will be pissed as well. Here's the thing, Brawley. You can't get pissed off because you have shitty internet. I mean, unfortunately, people will be mad at Intrepid. But there's not much... There isn't much Intrepid can do about the fact that you have shitty internet. Now, if you hadn't had whatchamacallit, if you hadn't had no pre-download, that would have been different. No, it's me. Because I'm trying to game on the streamer box. And unfortunately, I'll have to get into game and I'll have to downgrade the graphics. Don't care about the appearance. That's no excuse that I can't be pissed because I have bad internet. That's why there's pre-downloads in the first place. Intrepid could start the download and keep the server closed. No, Browley, that's a you problem. I'm sorry that you don't want to accept that it's a you problem, but you have bad internet. That is not... There are a lot of things that we can blame the developer for. Because... I'm not going to blame the developer because somebody is playing on a an RTX or a GE 770. I'm not going to blame the developer for things that aren't the developer's problem. Now, as far as not having a pre-download available, I don't remember off the top of my head if you can have a pre-download available for early access games. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to stream Ashes because, yeah, I'm going to have to, unfortunately, I am not going to be able to showcase the game, and so I'll just end my stream and let you guys venture off to other creators who can. Unfortunately, everything is set up to be a 2 PC setup, and my gaming PC was RMA'd. The GPU was RMA'd. So, unfortunately, I can't showcase the game because I'll have to maybe go in and take a look and tweak some stuff to see if I can get the performance better. As soon as I stopped streaming the game, it was using up all my resources. Like, I was at 100% skipped frames. So, I'll have to tweak this setup now that I can bring the game up and mess with it. But yeah, my stream is dying, unfortunately, because it's set up to be a 2 PC box, and the gaming PC is off. Anyway, you all have fun. Jump into Ashes of Creation. Leave your negative feedback about them not having a pre-download and how it affected you, because that's stuff they need to know for launch. Other than that, I will see if I can get this configured to stream and maybe stream tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll have to wait until I get my PC back. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
I wonder if the organic meat sack that runs this channel knows a lot of these sponsors don't sponsor us anymore.
They were longtime sponsors. The credits are fine.
Do we get paid? Is any of this sponsorship money for Gale, Daisy, the Chaos Fund?
You are a figment of Jalan's imagination.